Future Print Virtual Summit. I'm Karis Kopp, and I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to speak to Chris Curran, Group President, Printing and Packaging at NAPCO Media, and talk about some of the ways NAPCO are supporting the community and what he's seeing in terms of market trends and a little bit about the long-term impact the pandemic might have. Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
Karis, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you giving me an invitation to be a part of this.
Of course. First of all, just how are you? I hope you're not being too heavily affected day to day by the pandemic.
Affected day to day, I think is everybody's affected day to day. You know, our whole lives have changed, and the way we are experiencing our local communities has changed. And if you would have told me 3 months ago that our entire platform, both from production and audience engagement, would have moved into the cloud and into our teammates' homes, I would have laughed. But we've done it. I wouldn't say it was effortless, but yeah, it's a totally new world.
Yeah, it really is. And I'd like to kick off by talking a little bit about resources. Obviously, there was the acquisition of NAPCO Media last year from SGIA, and now there was the recently announced merger with Printing Industries of America, merging to form the Printing United Alliance. So there's now a really, really impressive pool of resources for that combined organization. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how the organization is helping businesses weather the storm.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first, let me say that I'm very proud to be a part of this transformation, both from the media side and from the association consolidation of the landscape in our North American printing community. You know, the leadership that has been displayed by our respective boards of directors, my teammates. I mean, everybody is just so inspiring in this entire process. And yes, it's happened during an international crisis, but you know, if anything underscores that we can do more together than apart, it's this time right now. You know, you're asking about how we're helping. If I point to just the COVID-19 resource channel that's available on all of our digital platforms, it's specifically curated and crafted by the experts of all these organizations that just merged. So. From any of our websites, you can access the resource channel that's specifically, again, for printers. So we've got information up there from federal regulatory perspective, state regulations, legislative affairs, health and human resources. I mean, the amount of expertise from our collective team and the resources that they put up there free of charge for the printing community it really underscores exactly why we all came together.
Great, and I know there's also research being carried out, and I had a look at the COVID-19 print business indicators research and the analysis of different segments. So maybe we could talk a bit about which areas you're seeing being more heavily impacted and why that might be.
Sure. Well, thanks for bringing up that bit of research. I mean, that research really came from the collective research group, which has personnel, and I'll use the older terms, but in the SGIA team, the PIA team, and the NAPCO team, we all had research components, and now all of them are acting as a cohesive unit. And it was really them who stepped up and said, you know, we need to track this. We need to create a consortium of printers that are feeding us information almost weekly. And really, I think that's the cadence now that it's been set up. So we now have over 500 printers across every single segment of the community that have volunteered once a week to give us business metrics, and it's sales, it's staffing, it's throughput through the organizations. It only takes them a few minutes to sort of upload their metrics to us, but the first piece of research just got finished. And I'll have to say that it's really startling in a not good way to see that 90% of the revenue, or 90% of organizations have seen reduced revenues over the last 2 months. So really quite catastrophic, unfortunately, for the industry. But, you know, as you also asked, you know, what are we seeing in different markets? I'd be remiss if I said one was worse off than the other, because almost everybody is off plus 50% or higher, one in apparel being minus 68% drop in revenue. You know, the one that's probably less affected has been the labels and packaging community. they're still reporting revenues that are down, minus 15% around that. But if anybody was sort of insulated from this, it was them. But everybody's suffering at this point, and it's just an unprecedented reduction in revenue across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned there, that research is ongoing, isn't it? So there's going to be updates on
That's correct. Yep. So we'll be producing updates regularly. The whole idea here is to track the recovery, and it may mean that we are not at the trough yet, at the bottom of the market, but we could be. But the nice part is that going forward, all of these printers have agreed to stay on board with us and continue to give us their data. We actually expect to track this well beyond what I would say is the recovery point, and then use this as an economic indicator for our North American printing industry going forward.
Mm. So sort of a long-term impact we're obviously anticipating, and that's something you'll keep tracking.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this is that we're definitely going to see recovery in some segments faster than others. But the neat part about being part of this, and for any of the printers that are watching this, I would encourage you to reach out to us and become part of this, because you'll get customized reports to the printing community, and you'll be able to track whether you are, maybe lagging from where other people are that you would consider your peers in your respective areas.
Okay, great. And as we mentioned, that's ongoing research, so something for everyone to keep an eye on. I'd like to kind of change tack slightly and look at the event side of things. NAPCO, like pretty much every other event organizer in the world, has had to postpone events due to the pandemic. So firstly, what's kind of been the reaction to the postponement from attendees and sponsors to the events that you've had to postpone?
Yeah, I think that everybody, was shifted in, how we were basically carrying on with our business. Our attendees, our sponsors, all were, in the same boat with us. We were dealing with facts daily that were changing. I think fortunately we were one of the first people to really rebook future events. Dates for some of our events in the spring. So fortunately, we were able to get some really good timing for our smaller events. But keep in mind too, it didn't just happen for all of our printing community events. They happened for all of our brand events. We have businesses in marketing, we have businesses in the retail segment. All of our events shifted out of the spring and into late summer and the fall. But I can say that, every single attendee, every single sponsor was working with us and feeding us their information about what's going on in their organizations, what are their new policies and procedures, and a real spirit of partnership in trying to figure out what the new normal is going to look like for us.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on how the pandemic might affect events in our industry, kind of in the long term? It's obviously going to have some kind of long-lasting impact.
Sure. No, it's definitely going to affect how we, the kinds of experiences that we have. And I think today those experiences are working with one set of facts where there's social distancing involved, there's safe and healthy practices going on at the different venues. I think it's going to be a shift. I don't know exactly what that looks like today. We actually have an analyst from the Johns Hopkins University working with us in helping shape what our expectations are, both from a venue, but also from a productivity perspective. Like, how do you actually put these things on? And what's the timing of the different events that you're putting on? We have micro events where I would say they're under 250 people. And then obviously we have a macro event with Printing United, which this year was targeting 35,000 people. But whether or not those attendance numbers still stay the same is probably debatable at this point. But the good news is that of all the times that we have shifted some of these events right now, with all the facts that we have, it's we're still planning on putting on some events in August. Then of course, Printing United is later in the fall in October.
Okay. And obviously this is kind of a virtual conference that we're part of right now. Is that something that you think is going to kind of be on the rise in this new normal that we're creating?
Yeah, I think so. We've been doing virtual experiences, and I don't use conferences or events on purpose because I think events or conferences have have a tendency for us to think about us interacting human to human. So I think that virtual experiences are going to become part of our new engagement. I mean, the entire world on the business side just learned a brand new skill set. We're all becoming accustomed to this kind of communication with each other. We expect our expectations of what is normal is changing. I mean, I've had meetings with people that are still in their pajamas and their t-shirts and their hair is all a mess. And quite frankly, nobody cares. And that I think is really powerful in a shift in our experience expectations that's going to benefit us moving forward. So for sure, I think that using technology for audience engagement is going to continue to accelerate. We have a tremendous amount of audience engagement through all of our websites where we offer daily content updates and we offer e-learning experiences. I think we're just going to see the next level of audience engagement and technological experiences as a result of this.
So not to kind of think of these online events as replacements for kind of face-to-face events. It's offers something different. It's a different kind of experience. So you think they'll kind of complement each other going forward?
Absolutely. I think we're going to be in that in between where you may want to call it a hybrid, but nothing's going to replace a face-to-face meeting. Nothing is going to replace the ability to walk around and experience a piece of equipment, especially in our industry where equipment and understanding how technology is working is really critical. And I think you can get a walkthrough through a piece of equipment using your computer. If you're from the printing industry and you're a printer, there's nothing quite like being with the technology since it is part of our craft.
And also, being able to touch samples and, print such a sort of sensory experience, you need to be able to touch and smell and see things kind of face to face, I think, in this industry.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think there's going to be a, rethinking on businesses and how they use what we make in the printing industry. I'll point to some examples of, I think some marketers haven't really been able to get out there and sell their story just yet. But if I think about the dozens, if not hundreds of packages or takeout that we've had as far as food is concerned, in all of those packages that I've received, I could probably count 1 out of 100 that actually was using that medium as an opportunity to market additional products to me. So, I think that there will be marketers that start to rethink how can they use print to communicate beyond the initial sale. And that may just be one of the new things that comes out of this crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked then a little bit about Printing United, which for anyone that didn't know is a US trade show, and it was kind of born as a joint venture between then what was the SGIA and NAPCO Media. And the kind of platform and the focus was the theme of convergence and the idea that the industry is becoming less siloed and people are kind of moving into adjacent areas. This pandemic is having such a profound effect on businesses and the economy. So is it possible that this trend is going to be accelerated in the industry as a result of this pandemic?
Yeah, it's a great observation. I mean, there's no question that you're going to see businesses transform. Some are already transforming. Many have had to pivot their organizations to sustain themselves during this, and they're doing products that they never thought that they would make before. And I think those products will stay a part of their organization going forward well after the crisis. But I also think that, some of the pain that's being felt by some organizations, let's say I'm an apparel printer and I just lost 68% of my revenue, which is part of the business metrics that we're seeing. Those particular people are already thinking about how they can where you look at their business and say, okay, if my whole business was based on this, what are the other adjacent products or adjacent applications that I might be able to make if I already understand this kind of skill set on maybe it's digital printing, maybe it's screen printing. How can they apply those skills into maybe it's graphics in wide format, or maybe it's label production? I think that is going to be with us for at least the foreseeable 5 to 10 years, where anybody who is affected by this is going to build insurance policies in their business, whether it's the clients that they serve or the applications and products that they build.
Mm-hmm. And, people that aren't willing to kind of change and have a kind of holistic long-term view of their business, it's kind of speeding up that inevitable, dog eat dog situation, but just a bit faster because it's having such an effect on people's businesses. Yeah.
I used to work for an OEM or a supplier of printing technology to the label and packaging community. And one of the biggest things we would say is the trend is your friend. So if the trend is to follow your client and to build as many applications or produce as many applications for them as you can, and that will pull you into adjacent vertical printing markets, then by all means, if it's working for many, it's probably going to work for you too.
Yeah. Okay. And I would like to end on a kind of positive question, on a positive note. There's been so many amazing things that I've seen in the industry as a response to this crisis that's really, kind of heartening. Is there any examples you can share about how this crisis might be stimulating kind of creativity and innovation within the industry?
Yeah, there's actually so many heartwarming stories that I've seen, from printers and converters making PPE materials, and some of them are doing it free of charge, to organizations designing new things and giving them away royalty free. Now, I do want to mention a couple organizations if I could. I saw fibershield.org. It's dozens of converters around the globe who have now donated millions of paperboard-based face shields. And all the designs are up on faceshield.org that you can download royalty free for the rest of 2020. There's another organization called Plum Grove out of Chicago, and they've gone ahead and designed social distancing signage, healthcare signage for washing hands in your facilities. They've got all kinds of signs that you can download that are ready. They're sized correctly for being able to be reproduced on large format, but all royalty free. Just printer helping printer, or printer helping anybody who needs those kinds of signs in their community. And then lastly, maybe I'll share, what's something we're getting involved in. The website hasn't launched yet, but it's another international event. I don't know if you've seen, but some of the doctors on their face shields, they're getting labels printed to make them look like superheroes. They're putting labels on their chests so that the patient can see what the person looks like behind the mask. And there's an effort right now to build an international consortium to have all of these donated and available to healthcare workers too. So can't tell you that project just yet because the website's not up, but we have supported the people who are building it, and we will be pushing that through all of our communications as it becomes available. So, those are just three. I'm sure there are dozens more, and if people have great stories that they'd like to share with our audience, they're welcome to contact me directly. We love sharing great stories about what the printing community is doing to help each other.
That's great. And those examples just show how useful print can be at a time like this, and how much it can do to, in a way that keeps people safe, but is also, helps us, keep our personal relationships and also kind of be entertaining as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, you're seeing people cooperate across different verticals that they never maybe would have even thought that they were going to work with. So, if that doesn't underscore why we're building this united organization and this front for our associations here in North America, but also for our audiences, I don't know what does. So great bright moments in some really troubling times.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those examples. Wonderful. I think our time is nearly up. I'm conscious of not running over too much. So I'll wrap up this session, but I'd love to say a huge thank you to you, Chris Curran, for taking the time to talk to me today. So thank you again for that.
Karis, really appreciate it. And thanks for having us as part of your virtual experience and summit.